It's the song of the redeemed, rising from the African plain. It's the song of the forgiven, drowning out the Amazon rain.
The song of Asian believers, filled with God's holy fire. It's every tribe, every tongue, every nation, a love song born of a grateful choir.
It's all God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns.
It's all God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns.
Let it rise above the four winds, caught up in the heavenly sound. Let praises echo from the towers of cathedrals to the faithful gathered underground.
Of all the songs sung from the dawn of creation, some were meant to persist.
Of all the bells rung from 1,000 steeples, none rings truer than this.
It's all God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns.
It's all God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. And all the powers of darkness tremble at what they just heard.
'Cause all the powers of darkness can't drown out a single word. When
All God's children sing out glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. All God's children sing out glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. All God's people singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. All God's people singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. All God's people sing out glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns. All God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns, He reigns.
all God's children singing glory, glory, hallelujah, He reigns.
Good morning and welcome to Worship Online with Fos Community Church. Wasn't that awesome? This was the first time in the several weeks now that we've been meeting online that I got the opportunity to work with my worship team. And that was fantastic. Even though we were all separate and alone in our homes to record that song, through the miracle of technology, we were able to worship together as one voice, as one body. And I hope you worshiped with us as we sang that. Hallelujah, He reigns, and that was fantastic just to be working with my team again. My name is Mike Arvin, and I am the worship leader here at Fos Community Church, and I want to go over a lot of information here with you, but mainly I want you to remember three things: Facebook, foschurch.com, and the Fos Community Church app. Many of you have reached out to us wanting to know how you can help meet needs within the body, within our community. Others of you need help. We have tried to put all of this together on the website. There's a page that says we're all in this together, and there are links on there that you can click if you have needs or you know of people who have needs. Or if you would like to meet needs and you have resources and abilities to help others, We have put all of that together on that page on the web, so please visit that and click the link that applies to you. If you haven't already, I want to invite you to like and follow Fos Community Church on Facebook. We are purposely sending a lot of content and information to Facebook in these days because it's simply where everybody is, and it's a good way to connect and get information out quickly. So we're using Facebook a lot, and one way we're using that is weekdays at 12:15. Our lead pastor, Jeff, is hosting Daily Hope, and that's exactly what it is. It's a brief devotion, and it's a way to connect through comments, and it's a way just to see how folks are doing, how we're navigating these times, and what prayer requests we have. So I encourage you to join Jeff at 12:15 on weekdays at Facebook for Daily Hope. And if you can't join it then, this is Facebook. You can watch it later. You don't have to be there at 12:15 p.m. You can join later. You can also see it later on foschurch.com on the portion marked Watch Live. Another great opportunity I want to make sure you're aware of, every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m., Meredith Lewis is hosting a virtual small group online. This is open to anybody and everybody. Most of our small groups are meeting virtually right now, but if you are not connected in a small group, please join us Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. for the small group. How do you get there? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. On Facebook, you will find the Zoom meeting invitation for that. Or if you're like me and you've clicked around and you can't find it, email Meredith and she will send you the link. Meredith's email is meredith@foschurch.com. If you have kids or teens in your house, I bet they are bored. Well, we've got a solution for that. Laura Cochran, who works with our kids, is doing a great job of putting content out there just for them. Fun events that they can do at home, and just also ways to help them connect and grow in their walk with the Lord. Also, Brandon Rose, who works with our teens and students, is currently teaching through the book of Colossians. You will find all of this on the website, foschurch.com, under Connect. Just click Kids and Students, and likewise, a lot of this content is also on our Facebook page. If Fos Community Church is your home church, or you feel called to support the ministries of Fos, I'll let you know of a couple different ways you can do that. You can give online, foschurch.com. There's a section right across the top that says Give, and on the app, you will find the giving section in the bottom right-hand corner. You can also mail in a gift. You can do that at Fos Community Church, Post Office Box 333, Buckner, Kentucky 40010. I always encourage you to seek God in your giving. It's a way that He stretches our faith, helps us to grow, and ultimately a way that He blesses us when we're obedient to what He's calling us to do. Finally, we want to connect with you. When we meet physically, we have cards that you can fill out, but we still have those same cards online. On foschurch.com, across the top, it says Start Here. Under that drop-down menu, you will see Connect Form. On the Fos Community Church app, across the bottom, you will see Connect Form. Either way you fill that out, we will get that and you will be added to our email list. And again, a great way just to stay up to date with what's going on at Fos Church, and we encourage you to do that. It comes with a no-hassle guarantee. We won't show up on your door or anything like that unless it's Pastor Jeff bringing you a donut. So to find out if he'll do that or not, you better fill out the Connect form. Thanks again for being with us today. We hope that you have a meaningful experience with us as we worship Jesus.
The giver of every perfect thing, to you be the glory. A maker of heaven and of earth, and no one can comprehend your word. The king over all the universe, to you be the glory. And I'm alive because I'm alive in you. Jesus, I'm alive. a giver of every perfect thing. To you be the glory. Maker of heaven and of earth, no one can comprehend your word. The King over all the universe, to you be the glory. I'm alive, now I'm alive because I'm alive in you. And it's all because of Jesus I'm alive. It's all because of the blood of Jesus Christ. It covers me, erases dead man's life. And it's all because of Jesus. Every sunrise brings your name. The universe cries out your name. I'm singing freedom all my days. Now that I'm alive. And it's all because of Jesus I'm alive. It's all because the blood of Jesus Christ that covers me. That covers me and raises dead man's life. And it's all because of Jesus. It's all because of Jesus I'm alive. It's all because the blood of Jesus Christ that covers me and raises dead man's life. It's all because of Jesus I'm alive. All because of you. And it's all because of you. 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 It's all because of you.
Hey guys, let me introduce you to today's sermon. Just real quickly, this is what you need to know. I'm going to tell you a story today. So if you want to find the scripture references for everything I'm going to be sharing in the sermon today, you'll need to make sure that you've downloaded the FOS Community Church app and go to Sermon Resources, open up the sermon notes, and I'll have the background scriptures and a few background ideas for you to think about after the message today, something you could work through with your children or with yourself for Bible study. So listen to the story, enjoy that, and you can find all the scripture references that you need in the app later. Thanks, see ya. So I love a campfire. I love to be outdoors, and I love to be where there's a flame, and I love the smoke, love the flame, love the whole thing. But campfires always remind me of a guy named Simon Peter, who was one of Jesus' followers. He was one of his closest disciples. Simon was a real man. He was a fisherman by training, and Jesus invited him to follow him, and he became one of Jesus' closest followers. He became one of the inner three of the 12. And part of what I like about Peter is he was a real man. He was human. He was politically incorrect most of the time. He spoke way before he thought. His emotions always led. And when the other disciples were just thinking things, he was saying exactly what they thought. He was emotional. He was a man. Because he was a fisherman, he was used to being in storms. And because he was a fisherman, he learned to control everything in his life that he could, because sometimes life felt so out of control. He rose to become the leader of the followers of Jesus, of the inner band of 12. He was the spokesman, the one most likely to speak out for the rest of them, the one most likely to ask Jesus questions, the one most likely to respond when Jesus asked the question. So I want to take you through how Peter's emotions flowed, how his grief about the situation that he was entering into with Jesus began to emerge. How his grief showed up in his emotions, and how his emotions got him into some trouble, and how Jesus calmed the storm in his heart. It's going to be a pretty incredible ride as we talk about Simon Peter. Simon, of course, was invited to follow Jesus. As they began to walk with Jesus, Jesus took them to a city called Caesarea Philippi. In Caesarea Philippi, there was an area known as the Gates of Hell. At the Gates of Hell, the people of that time, in a city loaded with idol worship, they would gather at this place, and there was a river that went into the side of a mountain underground, like the river Styx, the river of death. And they believed that the spirit world entered and exited from there. And Jesus took his disciples there, specifically to the Gates of Hell, to talk to them about how he was going to establish his movement, his anti-Gates of Hell movement, through them. He asked the disciples while they're there at the Gates of Hell, he said, "Who do people say that I am?" He had some different answers, and finally Peter, head of the class, he said, "You are the Messiah. You are the Son of God." And Jesus applauded him and said, "You got it right. And on this confession, that I am the Son of God, that I am God himself, I'm going to build this movement called the church. I'm going to build this anti-Gates of Hell movement through people like you, Peter, people who get it. That's the rock I'm going to build this movement on." And Peter felt pretty good about that, I'm sure. And then Jesus, as they left the Gates of Hell, where he established the beachhead of this movement called the church, and the movement that Peter would one day lead, Jesus gave them some troubling news. It was like getting a storm warning on your iPhone about the COVID-19 virus. It lit up Peter's world. It changed his emotional set. And Jesus began to tell his disciples that as they headed to Jerusalem, that when he got to Jerusalem, that he would be killed. Now, Peter's emotions overwhelmed him. And even though he understood that this was the Messiah, this was the Son of God, indeed God himself, or at least maybe that was beginning to dawn on him, Peter stood directly in the way of Jesus, got in his way between Jerusalem and himself, and he said to Jesus, "No, you can't go, because that's not the plan." And then Jesus moved Peter aside and he said, "Get behind me, Satan," from calling him the founder of this movement he's going to build his movement on, to challenging him as the son of Satan himself. He moved Peter out of the way, because God's plans are always different than ours. And the storm that was coming was one that would change the world. It was the one that was going to rock Peter's world. And Peter enters into this time of wrestling through his emotions and these stages of grief that we're into sometimes, denial and anger and bargaining and finally coming to resolution and finding meaning. All these stages of grief that we work our way through when big storms are coming. The anticipatory grief that Peter felt, it shows up in his emotions. You see, one of the things I like about Peter is he didn't hold back much. And if you're going to make it through storms that are coming, you got to let your emotions flow a little bit, like the stream is flowing behind me, because if they don't flow, you will die inside. Peter's emotions flowed too much sometimes, as you'll see in the rest of the story, but let's go from here. Jesus set his face toward Jerusalem. He moved on there. He moved Peter out of the way, and they took off toward Jerusalem. As they entered into Jerusalem, it was a time of Passover, a giant Jewish festival with over 1 million people coming into Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. And this little band of followers of Jesus went with him to an upper room to celebrate the Passover. At that moment, Jesus instituted a new Passover, where he himself would become the Passover lamb. And indeed, he did become the Passover lamb. And so Jesus institutes this new Passover, and then he warns his disciples one more time. He said that the final part of the storm is coming. I'm about to be handed over to the Romans, and I'm about to be crucified. And once again, Peter, in his emotion, says, "There's no way, Lord, I'll go with you all the way to your death." And Jesus looked straight at him again, challenged his emotions, challenged his emotional response, and said, "No, Peter, you won't go with me. As a matter of fact, Peter, before that rooster crows in the morning 3 times, you will deny me 3 times. Peter couldn't believe it. So they headed off to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus begins to pray, and he brings Peter and 2 others close to him and says, listen, you stay right here and pray for me, because I'm facing a giant challenge and I'm going to need all the resources I can get, so pray with me. And Peter and the other 2 fell asleep while Jesus is praying. Not long after that, Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Jesus, shows up with an armed guard commissioned by the religious leaders to come and take Jesus away to a mock trial. Peter gets in the way. He gets between Jesus and this mob, and he grabs his knife out of its sheath, and he chops off the ear of one of the high priest's servants. And Jesus is like, no, Peter, it's not going to go that way. See, Peter's emotions are all over the place. He's fighting against this storm that's coming. He's doing all he can to try to control things, which is what we all do, isn't it? We try to control what we don't like. We try to make sense of what we don't like, and we fight against it. And Peter is fighting with his whole might. His emotions keep showing up. Jesus reached down and picks up that ear. He puts it back on that person and heals him on the spot. Because Jesus is going to go to the cross. He's going to give up his body in spite of what Peter wants done. And sometimes storms come in spite of what we want. But our emotions are all jumbled up, aren't they? They overwhelm us sometimes, and we respond in all kinds of ways. So Peter's emotions are all over the place. Well, at that point, they carry Jesus off to this mock trial. Most of the disciples run away into the darkness. Peter follows in the distance. And Peter is watching from a fire a lot like this one. In the middle of the night, while Jesus is being tried, he's an eye shot of Jesus. He can see what's happening to Jesus in the courtyard next door. And there's a servant girl that notices Peter. And that servant girl begins to challenge Peter and say, I think you are one of Jesus' disciples. And he says, no, I'm not one of his disciples. She said, no, I'm pretty sure you are. I'm not. 3 times she challenges him. And on the 3rd time, like a sailor, like a fisherman, Peter curses. He said, I'm telling you, I don't know the man. And just then, as the day was breaking, the rooster crowed. And once again, Peter's overwhelmed by his emotions. He's overwhelmed, and he begins to weep. And in his weeping, he remembers the words of Jesus, you're going to betray me. You see, sometimes our emotions get between us and Jesus. Sometimes our emotions betray us. Sometimes our emotions take us away from God's plans. And Peter has been trying to block this plan of Jesus. He's been trying to block the plans of God. And now he's failed. He failed his best friend. He failed his Lord. He failed the one he's been serving and following. Even though he committed his life to stay right there with him, he failed and fell away. And he was bitterly disappointed in himself. And he's obviously bitterly disappointed in the plans of God. That happens to us sometimes too, doesn't it? That we're bitterly disappointed sometimes by the storm that's coming, by the plans of God, by what we don't like, and we fight it with our whole heart. With all of our emotions, we fight against this possibility. Later that day, after betraying Jesus again from a distance, Peter watches his Lord hung up on a cross, crucified, and watches him die as the skies darken, and Peter's heart breaks. And all his hopes and dreams and plans for this movement that he thought Jesus was going to establish on the earth at this point, all of those things are gone. And in the smoke of that disappointment, with his eyes burning from the smoke from the fire from the night before and from his bitter disappointment, from his tears, Peter is heartbroken. And in his disappointment, and in his depression, which is one of these stages of grief, Peter goes home. He goes back to fishing because that's all he knows how to do. This plan that he thought he and Jesus had, and he thought that Jesus was going to establish this movement, it was all gone. It was all up in smoke. And so Peter, on a seashore one morning, encounters Jesus again. A few days later, after Jesus rose from the dead, while Peter is on a lake fishing with some other disciples, Jesus shows up while they're out fishing and builds a fire on the seashore. He begins to cook fish over the fire. And eventually he calls out to them and he says, hey, have y'all caught anything? Now this is a question that Peter had been asked before. Right before Jesus called him, Jesus had asked him, hey, have you caught anything? And he challenges Peter to throw the nets on the other side of the boat, and he has this miraculous catch. This echo comes back when Jesus asked him on the seashore that morning, in the face of his bitter disappointment, in the face of broken dreams, in the face of all of the emotions of those days, of the jumbled up denial and bitterness and anger and disappointment. Jesus finds Peter again and calls him out. Peter recognizes that it's the Lord. And the scriptures tell us, the writers of these gospels tell us that Peter girded up his garments and he began to try to run across the water to Jesus. And he makes it to shore and he recognizes it's Jesus. And he falls at his feet. And Peter's bitterly disappointed in himself. He knows he's failed his Lord. And yet Jesus restores him right there on the seashore. He begins to ask him, hey, Peter, do you love me? He says, yeah, you know I do. He asked him 3 times, do you love me? For every time that Peter had denied him, Jesus gave him a chance to repent and to restore. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And every time Peter says, yeah, you know I do. And on that seashore, at that fireside, over those cooking fish, Peter was restored by Jesus. He was recommissioned. His disappointment became a reappointment. His dead-end plans, what looked like it was over, became resurrected purpose. And I know there's a lot of emotions in your heart as we face the storms we're facing today. You're going to go through all kinds of emotions in the season ahead. And I would ask you to pray your pain out, to talk to God, to be as real with God as Peter was with his Lord. And fight with him if you must. Talk to him if you will. And let him know how you feel about what's going on. But always know that he's Lord and he's in charge. There was no way that Peter could understand as Jesus hung on that cross what God was doing. Heck, I can't understand it now over 2,000 years later, and lots of theologians and preachers have written about it and talked about it. I still don't claim to understand the full mystery of what happened on the cross in that storm that day when the sky darkened and the Son of God died on the cross. The only way I make sense of it is that 3 days later he rose again and he claimed power over death, victory over death. And he repurposed that terrible moment for something better. I promise you that God will repurpose the most terrible moments of your life for something better in time. But you will go through an emotional storm in seasons of your life. Times of bitter disappointment, times of being angry at God, times of bargaining with God, times of being resolute, and times of bitter failure. When you fall away from the purposes and plans you had for yourself and your hopes and dreams are dashed and they die. But God can bring you back from that brink. He can overcome your disappointment. The resurrection of the Son of God gives us hope that no matter how bitter our disappointments, no matter how much our loss, that there's promise behind the pain. There's a purpose behind the loss. After the death, there is a resurrection. And in our lives, as we clear through this storm in the weeks and months ahead, there will be a purpose behind all that we've been through. We can't see it yet. So we deal with our emotions and we dive deep to trust in this story of Peter, who challenged God himself and challenged God's plans himself, like you might be doing today too. And I want to say to you, it's okay to do that. It's okay to have some emotions about this. It's okay to wrestle with God because he's up to something we can't see. He's doing more than we know. When Jesus died on a cross, giving his life for us, he was doing something nobody could understand, still hard to understand. Cosmic change to the world. He was doing something amazing. And inside of this horrible time that we're facing, on the other side, God will do something amazing. Too soon to say right now. Let's not ignore the pain of right now. Don't try to blast your way from Good Friday and the hard times through to Easter too soon. Stay in the moment. Stay with your emotions. Feel everything that's going on. Work it out with God. Be like Peter. Be real. Be authentic. Be true. But never believe that God's finished. He will restore you. He will give you new dreams. He'll repurpose your life. Your disappointment will be reappointment. We'll all have a resurrected hope. We'll all have a resurrected faith. We will make it through this. We'll make it through together. We'll make it through with God. And we'll make it through as we remember stories of people like Peter, who challenged God's plan, who was bitterly disappointed, and who was reappointed on a seashore by a campfire one day with Jesus, the same way you and I will be someday too. So God, would you help us now to have a faith and a hope in you? In spite of the storms that are ahead, in spite of all of our emotions, would you help us to read the story of Peter as one who was authentic and true to you, one who developed more faith and indeed became the leader of the movement that you established after his failure and defeat, and you reappointed him and gave him new purpose. His ending was better than his beginning, and may that be true of us as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Try to hold on to this world with everything I have, but I feel the weight of what it brings and the hurt that tries to grab. The many trials that seem to never end. His word declares this truth. We will enter in this rest with the wonders anew. But I hold on to this hope, the promise that he brings. There will be a place with no more suffering. There will be a day with no more tears, no more pain, no more fears. There will be a day when the burdens of this place will be no more. We'll see Jesus face to face. But until that day, we'll hold on to you always. I know the journey seems so long, you feel walking on your own. There has never been a step where you've walked out all alone. Troubled soul, don't lose your heart, 'cause joy and peace he brings, and the beauty that's in store outweighs the hurt of life's sting. But I hold on to this hope in the promise that he brings. There will be a place with no more suffering. There will be a day with no more tears, no more pain, no more fears. There will be a day when the burdens of this place will be no more. We'll see Jesus face to face. But until that day, we'll hold on to you always. I can't wait until that day. The very one I've lived for always will wipe away the sorrow that I face. Touch the scars that rescued me from a life of shame and misery. Oh, this is why I sing. There will be a day with no more tears, no more pain, no more fears. There will be a day when the burdens of this place will be no more. We'll see Jesus face to face. There will be a day to you always.
Hey friends, thank you for joining us for worship today. You know, we're in Holy Week now, and in the week ahead on Daily Hope, 12:15 on weekdays on our Facebook page, we're going to have some special guests, and we're going to talk about the events of Holy Week. What you experienced today with Peter's emotions about all the storm that was coming toward Jesus is just one of the dramas inside of Holy Week, inside of that run-up to the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. And we have a lot of emotions about that. Peter had a lot of emotions. Interesting how Jesus repositioned and repurposed Peter's pain to make him into the man he's going to do, and I promise he'll do the same for you. Well, listen, so we have Daily Hope this week, and then in addition to that, on Easter Day, we have 3 special experiences for you. First of all, we have a sunrise service that will premiere early in the morning. Watch for the exact time. We're going to start near sunrise. We're asking you on that day to maybe consider going outside and just taking your phones out and watching the sunrise service with us and having a brief service. It'll be about a 15-minute sunrise service that you will really benefit from and your family will benefit from. So make plans to be up at sunrise, and then you can go do your Easter egg hunts or whatever you're going to do that day. And come back at 9:30 for a premiere worship experience on Easter Day, and that will be live online. And then here's the special treat. Sunday night, thanks to Sauerback Enterprises and the folks who run the local drive-in theater, we're going to meet at the drive-in. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. However, folks, people, I love you, but you're so adventurous. This is what worries me. I'm afraid you won't follow the guidelines. I need you to follow the guidelines. I need you to really do this. Here's what has to happen. When we come to the drive-in, you're going to checkerboard park. And friends, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you to keep your windows rolled up. With what we're knowing now about how this disease spreads, keep your windows rolled up. Enjoy the experience of being at the drive-in theater together. We're going to give you a lot more resources this week. We're doing it in the evening. We're doing it on Easter evening, 8:30, because we want to use the big screen. We want to give you the best drive-in movie theater worship experience we can, and the best way to do that is to share the big screen in the evening. So 3 events that day: sunrise, 9:30 a.m. premiere, and then a drive-in movie experience at the Sauerback Drive-In Theater right off Commerce Parkway, 8:30 p.m. And hopefully we'll have links for you to order popcorn from them ahead of time, but you've got to order online and do some things. And you need to know this: the Sauerback Enterprise people, Stephen Sauerback, is donating the use of his facility to churches to do this. Really cool, right? So that's what we're excited about. 3 special things for you on Easter, plus Daily Hope coming up. I hope you'll join us. Watch for details here on the Facebook page. Check out foschurch.com for details. Watch for emails coming out. If you're not getting emails from us, be sure to jump over to the app, Foes Church app, or go to the website and complete a Connect card and let us know. We love you. Can't wait to experience Holy Week with you. Stay safe, be smart, wear the mask, stay away from people, and let's whip this virus while we still can. All right? So love you. We'll see you. Bye-bye.